Delilah called me in tears. She said the landlord had sold their building, and they had just days to leave their apartment. "We have nowhere to go," she said, her voice breaking. My heart didn't even hesitate. "Of course," I told her. "Come here. This house is big. There's room for everyone. Family is family." That night, I opened my door to them, Aldrich, my youngest son, carrying boxes soaked with rain. Delilah stood in the hallway, her eyes scanning every corner of my home, like a buyer appraising real estate. The children, Tabitha and Wade, ran past me, laughing and wide-eyed. After a cramped two-room apartment, this must have felt like a palace. Aldrich hooked me tight. "Just for a couple months, Mom, till we find something." I smiled and nodded, but something in Delilah's eyes gave me pause. She lingered in the living room, taking in the furniture arrangement, touching the drapes like she was already home. At the time, I dismissed it. Maybe she just wanted to picture where their things might go temporarily. I gave them the entire upper floor, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom. I stayed in my downstairs room beside the kitchen. It wasn't much, but I told myself it was just for a short while. The first weeks passed quietly. Aldrich worked long hours at the garage. Delilah was home most days, hunting for a new job. The kids went off to school. We didn't interact much, and I didn't mind. I liked peace. I had worked as a nurse for nearly 4 decades. After my husband passed, the silence of the house had become deafening. In a strange way, their noise filled something in me. The clatter of feet on the stairs, laughter, the television on too loud. It almost felt like life again. But little by little, that life started shifting in ways I hadn't expected. One morning, I walked into the living room and stopped in my tracks. My favorite sofa, the one my late husband had placed beneath the front window 15 years ago, was now shoved up against the wall. "Bernice, do you mind?" Delilah asked, already pushing the coffee table aside. "It's just easier for the kids to do homework with more open space." I nodded. What else could I say? It was just a sofa. Then the tablecloth disappeared. Not just any cloth. This one, hand-embroidered by my mother, had graced our kitchen table for decades. In its place was a bright, cartoon-covered oilcloth. "It's better this way," Delilah said when I asked. "Kids are messy. We don't want to ruin something so beautiful." She said she'd stored it safely. I never saw it again. As winter rolled in, Delilah found work at a private clinic. Her confidence grew. And with it, something else: ownership. Aldrich brought home a massive flat-screen television, a gift from a grateful client. My modest television was moved to my bedroom. "You'll be able to watch your programs in peace," Delilah said with a bright smile. "The kids won't disturb you." Groceries shifted too. My shelves of cottage cheese, vegetables, and yogurt were pushed aside for snack packs, soda, and frozen meals. My fridge didn't look like mine anymore. "Do we have mayonnaise?" Delilah asked one evening, rummaging through jars. "We," that word had crept in, subtle but powerful. "We live here. We are a family. We decide things." But the truth, the "we" didn't include me. Not really. More and more, decisions were made without me. My schedule adapted to theirs. My habits, my music, my key breakfasts, my favorite chair were quietly erased or replaced. They had come into my house as guests. But now, it began with the living room. One morning, I walked in and saw the layout completely changed. My bookshelf had been pushed to the corner. My armchair turned away from the window. Toys were scattered across the floor like confetti. Delilah stood in the middle of the room, arms crossed, like a woman surveying her kingdom. I moved a few things around, she said casually. The kids need more space to play. Hope that's okay. I forced a smile. Of course. But I felt something strange then. A shift not just in the room, but in the air. Soon after, I noticed my embroidered tablecloth was gone. The one my mother had spent weeks stitching. Back when I was still a girl, I asked Delilah about it. Gently. Oh, that she said. Opening a cupboard. I put it away. The kids might spill something, and it's too beautiful to ruin. She smiled. I never saw the tablecloth again. Over the next few months, my house, my memories were edited piece by piece. The new television took over the living room. My old one was shoved into my bedroom like a retirement gift I hadn't asked for. This way, you can watch your documentaries without us bothering you, Delilah said. They brought in a new dining table. Sleek, modern, cold. Mine was sold to make space. Though I don't remember agreeing to that. My quiet fridge became a war zone of cartoon yogurts, frozen meals, and soda cans. My preferred kefir and apples were buried behind deli meats and plastic bottles. Even the garden didn't survive. One weekend, I walked outside and froze. My roses, my beautiful roses that I had nurtured for over 10 years were gone. Uprooted. Replaced by a plastic slide and a makeshift sandbox. What happened here, I asked. Horrified. Delilah didn't even look up from her phone. The kids need somewhere to play. You can always plant more roses in a corner. There was no corner left. Aldrich remained silent through it all. He came home tired. Kissed the children. Ate dinner. And sat in front of the television. He didn't notice that the house he grew up in was disappearing piece by piece. He didn't notice me disappearing with it. At first, I thought I was imagining things. But little clues added up. My favorite cup vanished from the kitchen. When I asked about it, Delilah shrugged. We have children. Things break. I found it days later. Shoved behind a row of jars I hadn't touched in years. It wasn't broken. Just hidden. Then came the whispers. Bernice, could you clean up after yourself? Delilah asked one morning, pointing to a single spoon and plate in the sink. We all need to pitch in now that there are children in the house. I had been cleaning up after myself for decades. But suddenly, a cup out of place was a moral failure. Bernice, please don't play your music so loud. The kids are doing homework. I had classical music playing soft. Quiet. A comfort. But somehow, even that was too much. Meanwhile, cartoons blared from the living room without question. Bernice, don't leave your pills on the kitchen table. What if one of the children grabs them? They were tucked neatly next to the salt. I needed them with meals. But apparently, even the salt had more right to be there than I did. Weekends became unbearable. Delilah's friends came over laughing. Loud. Confident. They took over the kitchen. Took over the living room. Once, when I tried to make myself lunch, one of her friends looked at me like I was the maid interrupting her afternoon tea. Bernice, could you eat later? We're talking here. I went to bed hungry that day. Aldrich didn't see it. Or maybe he didn't want to. Delilah's tired. He'd say, She's working hard. Don't sweat the small stuff. Mom. But it wasn't small stuff anymore. It was all the stuff. The house I had lived in for over 20 years. The house I'd built with my husband. The house we raised our sons in was becoming unrecognizable. And somehow, so was I. I wasn't Grandma anymore. I was just the old lady who left cups in the sink. The old woman who made noise. The one who needed reminders and rules. Tabitha once asked me, "Grandma, why does your room smell like old people?" She didn't even know what that meant. Someone had said it near her, and she just repeated it like a sponge. That hurt more than anything else. They didn't see me anymore. Not as a woman. Not as a mother. Not as someone who'd given them everything. I was just there. An afterthought. A problem to work around. And one day, I sat in my room, staring out the window where my roses used to bloom. And I asked myself a question I never thought I'd ask in my own home. When did I stop belonging here? By the time spring came around, I was no longer the woman of the house. I was a shadow. Delilah no longer asked permission. She simply informed me of things as if I were a tenant. Not the owner. "Cynthia and the kids will be over tomorrow," she'd say, placing her purse on the counter like a queen, returning to her palace. There were new questions. No. Would it be all right? Just cold declarations. When her friends arrived, I locked myself in my room. Their voices echoed through the house talking about work. Husbands. Spa appointments. My classical music, once filling the kitchen with soft elegance, was replaced with the slap of heels on wood floors and the constant hum of gossip. I remember one Saturday, I was warming up soup for lunch when one of her friends, heavyset, with bright red lipstick and louder opinions, walked in and looked me over like I'd invaded her country club. "Oh, you're still here," she said. Delilah breezed in a moment later, laughing. "Oh, this is Bernice Aldrich's mom. She's just getting lunch." "Bernice, could you eat later? We're discussing something." So I left my own kitchen, on an empty stomach. It wasn't just the voices. It was what those voices meant. This was no longer my home. It was Delilah's showcase. Her entertainment stage. Her empire. And I was the odd relic left on a dusty shelf. Soon, these Saturday gatherings became twice a week. Then 3. And suddenly, it wasn't just friends. It was coworkers. Neighbors. Distant relatives I'd never met. Strangers roamed my hallways. Saturday on my sofas. Ate from my dishes. They weren't guests anymore. They were residents. And I was invisible. When I asked, quietly, if I could have a few friends over for tea on Sunday, just 3 of them. For 2 hours, Delilah didn't say no. She smiled and said, "Oh, we can figure something out." But that Friday night, she dropped it. "Did you forget? It's Tabitha's birthday Sunday." I blinked. Her birthday is in October. Delilah didn't flinch. "We're celebrating early this year. You know how busy things get." So I postponed the tea. But that Sunday, no party, no guests, just cartoons blaring and Delilah painting her nails. When I asked again about rescheduling, her smile was gone. "Why are you pestering me?" she snapped. "You're not the only one who lives here. My friends are family friends. Your little gossip club can meet at a cafe." Gossip club. I didn't say anything, but something inside me hardened. The following week, I overheard her on the phone. "Bring the kids." Sin. Don't worry, Bernice won't be in the way. We'll use the living room like always. Like always. That night, I asked Aldrich for help. Can I have the living room Sunday for a couple of hours? I said. Gently. My friends are older. They can't sit on hard kitchen chairs. Aldrich didn't even look up from the game. Talk to Delilah. You know how she is about the weekends. But she always says no. Then maybe she has a reason. He turned up the volume. That Sunday, I got up early. Baked a cake. Set the table. My guests were arriving at 2 p.m. At 1, Delilah was still in the bathroom, curling her hair. I knocked softly. Delilah, would you mind if we sat in the living room, just for 2 hours? Glara's back hurts. She didn't even glance up. No, Cynthia's coming over. We need the space. I paused. They're not here yet. We could move before Bernice. She cut me off. Sharp now. I don't want the house to smell like your old lady perfume. 4 of you crammed in there. Talking about your hip replacements. No thanks. I stood there frozen. Her words slicing through the air. Then something inside me snapped. This is my house, I said. Calmly. I've lived here for 23 years. I have the right to invite my friends into the living room. Delilah stood up so fast. She knocked over the bottle of nail polish. Red liquid spread across the white counter like blood in a war zone. Damn it, she muttered, grabbing napkins. You see what happens? She hissed. When you come in with your demands, you ruin things. I didn't mean to. Shut up, she screamed. I froze. I'm sick of you and your weekly tea parties, and your constant complaints. We have kids. We have a life. And you just keep interfering. This is our house, not just yours. Then came the words I would never forget. You have no right to dictate anything here anymore. Silence. Even the kids upstairs went quiet. The walls held their breath. Delilah looked at me, eyes wild, hands trembling, and said in a cold, final voice, remember this. We live here as equals. And if you don't like it, you're the problem. And just like that, she walked out, leaving me standing alone, with a red stain on the counter and a decision forming in my heart. That night, I couldn't sleep. Delilah's words echoed in my head like a hammer on steel. You have no right to dictate anything here anymore. We live here as equals. If you don't like it, you're the problem. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my hands clenched under the sheets. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a bad day. This was war. For weeks, I tiptoed around my own home, the place I had built with my husband, brick by brick, memory by memory. But now, every room felt occupied, every hallway watched. Delilah no longer tried to hide her contempt. If I forgot to rinse a spoon, she'd say something. If I walked too loudly, she'd sigh loudly. One morning, she told me to do laundry only on Mondays and Thursdays. It's just more organized that way, she said. The machine was mine, paid for with my retirement savings. But now, I needed a reservation to use it. Then one evening, I overheard something that broke what little peace I had left. Delilah was speaking to Aldrich behind a cracked bedroom door. I think your mother needs professional help, she said. What kind of help, you know? Psychological. Maybe medical? She's been acting strange. Picking fights. Demanding space. Maybe it's early signs of dementia. My breath caught. Delilah. Come on, Aldrich replied. She's just lonely. She's unstable, Delilah said, her tone icy. She needs supervision. Maybe a facility. A nursing home, Aldrich asked. Incredulous. A modern one. They're like resorts now. They'd take care of her. And we'd have the space we need. Tabitha's growing up, she needs her own room. They were planning to move me out. Out of my home. Into some institution. Dressed up like it was care. Like it was concern. But it wasn't. It was exile. And the worst part, Aldrich didn't argue. That was the moment I decided. I would not go quietly. I would not be erased. The next morning, when the house was empty, I pulled out the deed from the old metal file box in the closet. My name? Only mine. Not Delilah's. Not Aldrich's. Mine. I called a real estate agency in the city center. I'd like to know how much my home is worth. The agent, Patricia, was kind and professional. We arranged an appraisal. I told my family it was for home insurance. No one questioned it. They rarely noticed what I did anymore. When Patricia arrived, she walked the house, jotting notes, inspecting the structure, measuring windows and checking the garden. An hour later, she looked at me and said, "You could easily get $130. Ling. Maybe more if we move fast." The number made my heart pound. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table. Brochures of apartments spread before me. Cozy little places with balconies and clean white walls. My own keys. My own door. My own life again. I chose one. A 2-room apartment near the city park. 4th floor. Quiet. Full of light. I signed the preliminary sale agreement for my house the following week. And I told no one. I watched Delilah plan her next gathering. I listened to her on the phone with Cynthia. Laughing. She's not going anywhere. Where would she go? Where? Indeed. The day before I signed the final sale papers, I sat my family down for dinner. The kids were laughing. Aldrich was tired. Delilah was plating chicken. I sold the house. I said. Calm and clear. The room froze. Delilah's fork clattered onto her plate. Aldrich's jaw dropped. Would I sign the papers? The new owners are moving in next week. You can't be serious. Delilah breathed. I am. This is our home, she screamed. No, I said. Softly. It was mine. You can't throw us out. We have children. I'm not throwing you out. I'm leaving. The house is sold. You have 10 days. Delilah jumped to her feet, red-faced and shaking. You've lost your mind. You'll regret this. You've destroyed your family. But I had already mourned the family I thought I had. Aldrich stared at me, stunned. Mom. Why? Because. I said, looking at both of them. This is the first time in 2 years that I've made a decision, and no one got to overrule it. Delilah's voice cracked. You'll never see the kids again, Tabitha whispered. Grandma, I turned to her. I'll miss you, but sometimes adults need space to breathe. I went to my room, closed the door, and for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. The war was over, and I had finally chosen myself. I expected screaming, maybe even pleading. But after I told them the house was sold, there was only silence. The kind of silence that suffocates a room. Delilah sat frozen, her hand still hovering mid-air with a forkful of chicken. Aldrich looked at me as if I'd spoken in another language. The kids didn't understand the words, but they understood the tension. Wade dropped his spoon. "You're joking," Delilah finally said. "I'm not," I replied. "The buyers are coming next week." She stood abruptly, knocking her chair over. "You can't do this. You won't do this." I stayed seated. "I already did." Delilah's voice rose into a panicked shriek. "You're throwing your own grandchildren out onto the street. Where are we supposed to go in 10 days? You were supposed to be here for 2 months." I said evenly. "It's been 2 years." Aldrich finally spoke. Stunned. "Mom, how could you not tell us I tried?" I said, "But you didn't want to hear it." Delilah stormed out of the kitchen. I heard her slam the bedroom door, and then the muffled sounds of her on the phone, probably calling Cynthia, or a lawyer. Aldrich rubbed his face and let out a long breath. "I can't believe this is happening." "Neither could I," I said, "until last week." The next day, the threats began. First, a phone call from a law office claiming Delilah wanted to suspend the sale until her residency rights could be reviewed. What rights? She never paid rent, never signed a lease. She was a guest, not a co-owner. Then came Delilah herself. She cornered me in the hallway, trying a new tactic. "Businesswoman calm. We'll buy the house," she said. "Not all at once, but through payments. A mortgage. Maybe. Just cancel the deal and sell it to us." "No," I said. "You'll regret this." I already regret not doing it sooner. That weekend, the buyers returned for one final walkthrough. A sweet couple, Robert and Selena Baxter. 2 children, both under 10. Selena looked around the backyard with a smile on her face. "This garden," she said. "It's everything we dreamed of." Funny. I thought, someone finally saw it again as a dream, not a burden. I signed the final sale documents the following Tuesday. eBay censure. Ling. In cash. No loans. No strings. That night, I came home and found Delilah pacing in the living room, pale and trembling. "You've destroyed us," she hissed. "This was our home. The kids' home. You ruined their lives." "This was my home," I corrected. "And you treated it like yours, without the responsibility." She laughed bitterly. "Do you think you'll be happier in some tiny apartment? All alone with your dusty tea set. I'll be free," I said. "And that's worth more than space." In the following days, chaos erupted. Suitcases piled up. Aldrich made desperate calls to realtors. Delilah searched for rentals with a clenched jaw and dark circles under her eyes. She even threatened me one more time. "Cancel the deal, or you'll never see your grandchildren again." I looked her in the eyes and said, "You've already made sure of that." By the final day, the house was packed. I watched them fill boxes with toys and books and piles of things they never intended to own long term. Things that had made their way into my space, as if it were always theirs. Tabitha stood in the hallway, holding a stuffed animal and looking confused. "Grandma, where are you going? To my own place," I said softly. "A place where I can listen to music and have tea with friends. And keep my roses if I want." Her eyes welled up. "Will we still see you?" I smiled, though it broke my heart. "That's up to your parents." Delilah didn't say goodbye. Aldrich hugged me one last time, holding on longer than usual. "Mom, I'm sorry. I should have seen it." "You didn't want to," I replied. "But now you do. That's enough." The moving truck rumbled to life. The front door closed, and the house was quiet. Empty. Mine again. But only for one more night. I walked through the rooms one final time. The nursery. The living room. The bedroom where my husband had passed. Each wall whispered memories. Each corner held echoes of joy and heartbreak. But I didn't cry. Not this time. The next morning, the Baxters arrived with boxes and wide eyes. Excited to begin their chapter, I handed over the keys. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Just peace. And the knowledge that for the first time in years, I wasn't being erased. I was starting over. The new apartment was small, but it was mine. On the morning of the 18th of October, I stood in front of the building with 2 suitcases, a box of photos, and a quiet, nervous heart. Rain trickled from the sky like a farewell. The street smelled of wet leaves and something new. Patricia, my real estate agent, met me at the door with a set of keys. "You made it?" She smiled. We stepped inside. Clean walls. Soft light from the window. A modest kitchen with just enough counter space. A narrow balcony overlooking a small park. No toys on the floor. No strangers in the living room. No one telling me I had to ask permission. By lunchtime, I'd unpacked my dishes, set up my tea set, and placed a framed photo of my husband on the bookshelf. I stood back and looked at it all. Not fancy, but peaceful, and for the first time in 2 years, I exhaled without fear. That evening, Mira called. "So how's your little palace quiet?" I said, "Good." She replied, "You deserve quiet." I walked around the neighborhood the next morning. A grocery store 2 blocks away. A pharmacy next to it. A bus stop at the corner. Everything I needed on my terms. The following week, I began settling into something I hadn't felt in years routine. I got up when I wanted. Made coffee the way I liked. Played my music out loud. And nobody sighed or changed the station. I could even leave my pills on the kitchen table, and no one accused me of being a danger to children. It was heaven in miniature. Then, something unexpected happened. Quentin called. "Mom, I heard you sold the house." I nodded into the phone. "I did." "And Aldrich?" he asked. "They moved out. They're renting now." He was quiet for a moment. Then what happened? So I told him. Everything. How I was pushed aside. How my home had become a battleground. How Delilah had tried to control it all, even the air I breathed. And how I finally snapped and chose freedom. "I'm sorry, Mom," Quentin said. "I should have come around more often. You had your own life." I said, "It wasn't your fault." "No," he replied, "but I should have seen it. I should have protected you." Later that week, Quentin called again. "Mom, you won't believe this. Remember that couple you sold the house to the Baxters? Well, turns out their aunt knows Mira. Small world." "Right," I chuckled. "Smaller than I thought." He paused. "They've got a finished guest room out back. It's nice. Private entrance. And they offered it to me. Cheap." "You're moving back?" I asked. "If I can get my boss to let me work remote." "Yeah. I've been thinking about it for a while." I hung up with a smile. The house I had to leave was calling my other son home. A week later, Quentin did move into that guest room. He came to visit often, helped me set up my Wi-Fi, brought flowers, even fixed a leaky faucet. You know, he said one afternoon. This place suits you. It's got your energy. I laughed. You mean quiet and stubborn? I mean dignified. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. But peace didn't last long. Aldrich called. His voice was flat, tired. Hey. Mom. Hi. Sweetheart. How are things? We're in a rental, he said. It's small. Expensive. The kids hate their new school. I waited. And Delilah. She's not doing well. She's angry. Resentful. I didn't respond. Mom. I'm sorry. He continued. I should have stood up for you. I should have said something sooner. I know you were trying to keep peace. I said. But silence doesn't protect the people it should. Do you think maybe we could come visit sometime? You can always visit. I said. But I won't be moving back. He sighed. I didn't expect you would. Take care of your kids. Aldrich. And take care of yourself. I will. We hung up. That night, I sat on the balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city breathe below me. The streetlights flickered. The rain had stopped. The wind whispered through the trees. And I realized something. Delilah had taken my home from me, but I had taken back something even greater. Myself. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like a woman who had made a hard choice and survived. By early November, life had found a rhythm. Quiet mornings with hot tea, afternoons filled with books, walks to the market, and soft piano music playing from the kitchen radio. Evenings with no raised voices, no door slamming, no guilt. Peace had come not with fireworks, but with stillness. And then, Mira got sick. It was the flu, nothing dangerous, but enough to leave her bedridden for a week. I visited every day, brought groceries, helped to do her kitchen, sat beside her bed with soup and conversation. Bernie, she whispered one day. What would I do without you? I smiled. You'd get very good at coughing alone. She laughed through the fever. Those days reminded me who I was. Not an old woman being managed. Not a nuisance in someone else's kingdom. But a friend. A caretaker. A woman with value. When Mira recovered, she hosted a little tea at my apartment. Clara came. So did Mrs. Grimshaw and a few others. The living room was full of voices, laughter, and the soft clinking of china. For once, no one told us to keep it down. No one suggested we were in the way. No one dismissed us as old ladies clinging to the past. This place is perfect for you, Clara said, sipping her tea. You've built a sanctuary, added Mrs. Grimshaw. And you did it without anyone's permission. We sat until evening, talking about everything, complaining about nothing, and as I walked my guests to the door, I realized something that made me stop in my tracks. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Delilah, not at Aldrich, not even at myself. I was free. The next evening, I received a surprise call from Selena Baxter, the young woman who had bought my house. Hi. Bernice. I hope I'm not bothering you. Not at all. I said. How's the house? Oh. The kids love it. And we're settling in beautifully. But that's not why I called. It tilted my hill. Oh, my aunt. Esther lives in the regional center. She told me she has a friend named Mira, who always talks about someone named Bernice. And Well, it all lined up. I laughed. Small world. Selena's voice warmed. She said lovely things about you. And this might sound forward, but we're thinking of converting our back workshop into a guest suite. If your son Quentin ever wants to move closer, we'd be happy to rent it to him. For a symbolic amount. He seems like good people. I was stunned. Not just by the offer, but by the poetry of it. The house I had fought so hard to leave was now offering my son a way home. A week later, Quentin moved in. The guest suite was perfect, 1 bedroom, private bath, kitchenette, and a side entrance. He still worked remotely. But now, he came by my apartment every few days, bringing pastries, helping with my phone, sharing dinner. One day, as we sat together watching the rain, he said, "You know, I think moving here saved me. The city was chewing me up. But here, everything feels real again." I nodded. Sometimes, we find what matters by walking away from what doesn't. Then, unexpectedly, Aldrich called again. His voice was thin, tired. "Mom, I just wanted to check on you. I'm doing fine." I said, "I'm not," he admitted. "Delilah's still bitter. The kids, they ask about you, but she won't let them call." I closed my eyes. That ache still there. "I'm sorry," he said, "for not protecting you, for not standing up, for letting her twist things. You were stuck." I said gently, "I don't blame you, but I blame me." He whispered. We were quiet. "Then can I come visit? Maybe bring the kids?" "If she allows it. You'll always be welcome here." "Aldrich," I said, "but I can't fight for my place in your life anymore. That has to come from you." He sighed. Understood. We hung up, and I sat alone, staring at the window, wondering if my grandchildren would ever walk through my door again. But I didn't cry, because I had no regrets. In mid-November, Mira, Glada, and I took a walk in the park. The leaves had turned gold. The air was crisp. The way fall feels when it's honest cold. But clean. I can't believe how much has changed in 2 months. Mira said, "You look 10 years younger." "I feel it," I replied. That night, I sat in my living room, alone, but not lonely. Delilah had learned a hard lesson. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Aldrich, too, had changed. He'd seen what silence costs. And me, I had found something precious in the echo of loss. A small apartment, a handful of friends, my own rules, and most of all, peace